An interesting statistic: white guys view black women differently than black guys. And these statistics don't lie. Interracial divorce rates. This is pretty interesting. A black man and a white woman are 200% more likely to be divorced. An Asian man and a white woman are 59% more likely to be divorced. An Asian woman and a white man are 4% more likely to be divorced. But this is the crown of the study. A white man and a black woman are 44% less likely to get divorced. Pretty interesting, isn't it, my sister?
Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you already know what I'm about. So let's get into it. So first of all, I just want to say I don't really care who people marry. I am not anti anything that will bring you your person. You know, I am just here always just kind of bringing balance to what I see and the narratives that are actually being constantly told. So I'm just all about, finding balance. That is it. So when it comes down to who you marry, who you talk to, what relationship you're in, I don't really care. Like I said, it's just all about, at the end of the day, bringing glory to God and actually getting us out here, with someone. Okay. That being said, like I said, if somebody wants to be a passport bro and they want to go overseas and find a woman, if, somebody wants to be a passport gal and they want to go over and they want to find someone, hey, knock yourself out. Even in the United States, if a black woman wants to marry a white man, fine, enjoy your life. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing for a black man who wants to marry a white woman. Hey, I have no problems with it. That being said, I did want to talk a little bit about the statistics and even what we should be paying attention to, okay, that we might not be paying attention to. So I looked it up on Google and again, you can do this type of search. And you probably are seeing it on the screen right now. 4.6% of married black American women, okay, and 10.8% of married black American men had a non-black spouse. And of that, 8.5% of married black men and 3.9% of married black women had a white spouse. So before we even get started, we have to acknowledge the fact that black men are twice as likely, okay, to marry, a white woman than a black woman is to marry a white man. So basically, if we sit there and we actually look at, the different divorce rates. So according to, this information, which I found out on Reddit, black men to white women are 200% more likely to get a divorce, while black women and white men are 44% less likely. But again, right at the beginning, you also have to understand that twice as many black men actually got married in the first place, where only half of those were black women. Like none of this information, allows us to know their age. When did they get married? Nor does it even tell us their education. Like, was the woman a highly educated woman? Was she like a professor? And then she met, a man that was kind of like a professor? What I find interesting with a lot of the information that we get online is it never really shows the entire picture. It shows the picture of what the people are trying to tell you, not saying everything. Okay. And again, this is not me going against black women, marrying white men. Like I said, I don't care. But I want, anybody to be ready to kind of understand, okay, what's really going on. Okay. What's really happening. And because of that, to be prepared. All right. See, one of the things that I actually believe that happens with most of this type of information, to be honest with you, is that you're dealing with groups of people that can't find what they would consider their equivalent. All right. They just can't find it. In fact, when you start to really understand what a lot of successful / educated black women are saying is they're saying that there's not enough black men. Okay, and that has been a narrative that's probably been going on for at least 25 to 30 years. But that narrative, while I will say it is technically true, it is not as, direct as what it sounds like. Okay, so more black women do go to college, okay, and get a quote unquote education than black men. But even in that, and even though more black women will go for advanced degrees, they don't really line up the same. Again, I'll give you an example. You can have a man that went for a computer science degree. And I know many of you that follow me do a lot in computer sciences. So you might be doing databases, you might be doing websites, you might be doing cybersecurity, you might be doing, system administration, you might just be a programmer. It's a lot of different things that you can be doing when it comes down to computers. In fact, you can even get certifications for a lot of what you can do in computer work. Okay, and a lot of those jobs pay anywhere between $65 all the way up, believe it or not, to $200,000 a year. Okay, depending upon what you're doing, where you're at, how good you are, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, you can have a woman that has gone to school. She's gone to get all the way up to her PhD, but perhaps she's in a field, like teaching. And at that point, her PhD might give her $90,000 a year, maybe even $120,000 a year. But the man with less education is actually making more money. Do you see how this works? You can also have a man that maybe he just went for his bachelor's degree, but he decided, to actually do something like real estate. And I have actually several friends in real estate. In fact, I've let you all know that I know two people that are in my friend group that are self-made millionaires. And both of them did it through real estate. Okay, so they didn't even use their college education at all, but yet they're millionaires. So again, this information is not quite equating to what is really going on, if this makes sense. See, the biggest thing that I actually think is a problem, when it comes to a lot of people is we pick the person that's in front of us a lot of times, even if they're not necessarily qualified. And then we don't want to leave outside of that group to find new people. Okay. And then we also don't want to allow someone to act, in any way that is not stereotypical. So right now I am throwing up, pictures of different types of, black people. I'm just going to toss a few up on the screen, and they're not going to look like what you might consider your typical black person to look like. And the reason why I'm doing this is because, again, I'm trying to prove to you that even as some of you are looking at some of these pictures, you might be thinking, ooh, wow, that's weird. I don't get that, blah, blah, blah. But it's nothing wrong with these black people. They exist in our world. Okay, one of the things that I've always said, and it's funny because those videos tend honestly to do very well on this channel, so I know there's a lot of interest in it, is when you're dealing with black women that aren't stereotypical, right? So this is the awkward black girl. This is the nerdy black girl. This might be the quote unquote whitewashed black girl. But see, a lot of black men, they're able to make that leap. But what I'm not seeing is a lot of black women saying that they can make that leap. When I was talking to Abigail over at Proverbs 31 University, she loves to talk about how when she was growing up watching the TV show Family Matters, that she actually had a crush on Urkel. That she actually thought the nerdy Urkel was actually cute, funny, and it would be actually someone that she would date. But in reality, the Urkel black men, and you don't even have to be at that level, because like I've always said, the average nerdy black guy doesn't look like that, feel like that, act like that, or move like that. But when you're starting to deal with those men are some of the black men that suffer the most. In fact, when I've talked about, people suffering, is generally the instinct-based woman and the heart-based man, right? So what happens if you have a man that is heart-based and he is also thinking-based? Well, generally speaking, especially if he leans into that thinking, okay, that starts to lean him down that intellectual nerd path because he has the knowledge. He wants to talk about the knowledge. The knowledge actually excites him. And then he has that ability within him that he is actually a little bit of a nice guy. So he really wants to romance the woman. He really wants to do for the woman. And you see how those two things together have now hurt him, especially among women who want a man to basically be a little bit more like the men that they were used to growing up. And remember, we still have a sexual attraction problem when it comes to a lot of women, period, in our society. And that just, happens because the men who are generally very aggressive in middle school and high school, I should say the boys that were very aggressive in middle school and high school, and it really doesn't matter what race, those are generally the boys that aren't doing anything. So those boys, they might be, playing a sport or something, but they don't really have vision beyond, a small part of their life. They're not pushing into education. They're not even pushing into doing their own business. So these men are just available and they're bored. So they're kissing on girls and all this other kind of stuff. And so now the girl becomes, used to that. And then as she becomes a woman, that's what she thinks men act like because that was her first experience. But in reality, these men, they make their rounds. I guarantee you they make their rounds. 10 of these men, will go through 150 women in 2 years. And so what's happening is a lot of these women are basically lining themselves up with the worst kind of men. And then as they get older, now they get frustrated. And one of the things that I've learned about interracial relationships, and, which is one of the most interesting things about humans, is we will accept something in another race or culture that we will not accept within our own. If we believe, that a black person is supposed to listen to R&B music or to rap music or to hip hop, and we run into a black person that doesn't listen to those things, we think that they're weird and we kind of ostracize them. However, if we run into a white person that does that, or an Asian person that says, I don't really listen to rap music, I don't listen to hip hop, I don't listen to R&B, we will accept them. And it's a real interesting phenomenon. And again, I'm gonna put some pictures back up on the screen. So what you're seeing now is a type of fashion, that is actually in Japan. And so among these women, one of them evidently is black and the other one is Asian. But because the Asian woman is not in my culture, it's easier for me to accept her being dressed this way. It's more of a stretch, even though I'm very open-minded. Even though I'm not going to say I'm super well traveled, I have friends from all over the world. I love to talk to them about their culture and different things like that. And I honestly see the beauty in almost every single thing, when it comes to culture. But even I'll admit a black woman dressed like this seems odd to me. Why? Because I'm not used to it. I'm simply not used to it. And because I am not used to the Asian culture like that. Like if I go to Japan, I'm not really used to their culture like that because I've not spent a lot of time in Japan. So it's easier for my brain to say, it's okay for the Asian woman to be dressed like this, but it's weird for the black woman to be dressed like this. And see, that is really where the problem happens. There are a lot of really great black men. There are a lot of really great black women. But many times we overlook them because they seem odd to us. For instance, you might think it odd of me that I have never watched Power, nor do I have the desire to watch Power. In fact, most of Tyler Perry's films, I think after maybe the third or fourth film that he made, I've never watched them. I've never watched most of Tyler Perry's shows. In fact, I would honestly say that probably about 80% of the black film media I have never watched that has been made over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, I'll probably say I've not watched most of it. Even though we're in a boom of black media, there's very little that I watch. And my background is actually in filmmaking. So you would believe that, hey, Jay, why aren't you watching this stuff? And I'll be honest with you, I don't identify with it. I don't. I'm from the suburbs, like I've said before. So to see people that undisciplined and they have all these problems in their life that they're creating through these stories, I don't identify with it. Okay? So I do watch stories, but like I say, I watch a decent amount of anime. I have watched almost every single Marvel film. My background, like I say, is in media, but I've also done animation. And so a lot of my background is also in animation. So I watch almost everything animated. So if it's Disney, if it's, like I say, Pixar, if it's Illumination, Sony, whoever it is, most of the animated films I watch. So what that means is I'm kind of like an oddball out here among black men. I can still wear a chain. I can still put on, an outfit like a lot of, black women are used to. Actually, this ear is actually pierced. I don't have an earring in it, right now. But I have an image that, depending upon where you meet me, it might fit into what you think a black man is supposed to be. I even laugh because I've told people I actually even have a system in my car. So depending upon where you meet me, you might think, oh, okay, he's like the normal type of black guy. But then you meet me in other places and you'll be like, oh, Jay's weird. But am I weird, or am I just being me? Doing my truthful self, being the self that I was made to be, right? What I find is, if most black women would open themselves up to all types of black men, okay, and black men would open themselves up to all types of black women, it would work better. But it's like I've told you all before, you have to deal with female sexual desire. So if you are a woman, okay, and I already kind of explained it a little bit, you have to change your perspective on how men approach. And you have to understand that the literal approach of a man is the beginning of sex. Okay? And I know you see the cross on the screen. So if you're new, you're getting weirded out. You're like, okay, he said the S word. Okay, how? Okay, what's going on? Well, see, here's the whole thing, especially for the new people. Everything starts with sexual desire. Everything. That's why if your sexual desire gets corrupted, you have to rebuild it. Okay, and a lot of women fail when it comes to dating because they have a corrupted sexual desire. I shouldn't really say corrupted. It is just their sexual desire is not going to bring about the best man. And again, that is why you hear so many women talk about, I did not marry my type. Because see, their type was one step up from Pookie and Raymond. Okay, Raymond is just a high value version of Pookie. So that is what a lot of women's type is. Even white women would say, I like the bad boy. It's the same thing. Proverbs 5 and Proverbs 7, talks about that, saying that that's the wayward man. All right. These type of men have been around forever. And so what happens is, when you attach yourself to that type of man and you think he is sexy, because when you see him, that is when you start to think, okay, I like his groove. I like how he walking. I like how he talking. All right. See, sex hasn't even happened yet. But see, the seeds of it are already there. And when you look at a man that you might think is conservative, or you think he's a little weird, or you think he's just plain, and that's probably the better way to say it, plain, you don't have as much sexual desire for him. You don't think he's walking in a cool way. You don't see the fact that you could have sex with him. And so therefore you ignore him. And what happens is, like I said, it is the normal, average, everyday guy that marries you, takes care of you, and will do for you. And it is the bad boy that you might think that there's more sex there, okay? But what happens is, that's the guy that mistreats you. That's the guy that leaves you. That's the guy that gives you a baby and then he's gone. And now when you try to get with the average guy will grow up one day and he will get his own, sexual energy. And if you catch him at the wrong time, then he may or may not deal with what all the baggage that you've gotten through this process. So again, this is not me beating up on anyone, but I'm trying to explain how this thing rolls. But if you as a black woman want a white man, I have no problem with it. But I also will say my goal is to get you married. Okay. And it's more likely that you're going to marry a black man than you are going to marry a white man. Okay. And all black men are looking for, okay, is they're just looking for a woman that lines up with the non-negotiables. It's really not that difficult. And I have a lot of videos where I go into it in a lot more depth, but I don't have time in this video. So please like, subscribe. That'll help you. Hit that bell because we do Zoom calls every other Thursday. And if you come out to those, you can ask your questions directly. All right. But until then, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.